I'm always curious about extraterrestrials and aliens and stuff like that, so I gotta ask, I don't know, your perspective, are they here? Are they in our solar system? Are we gonna make first contact soon? Or
We got to.
do
we
they
got
not
to ask
exist?
that.
I don't know. I gotta.
Yes.
Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin, back again. And today we have another special guest with us. We have Jeff, the spiritual escape artist. That is the name of his YouTube channel, where I think he's helping his audience, connect with their higher selves, grow on their spiritual journey. He's giving whatever advice he can. And I think he also does some channeling, and he taps into this thing he calls slipstreaming, which I really am curious about.
Well, we've got questions. I'm sure he's got answers. Let's get into it.
Jeff, the spiritual escape artist, this is awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show. Place we always like to begin is kind of with our guest's backstory. So maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
All right. Yeah. So my name is Jeff with one F. When you were talking spirituality, that's just, man, that's my life. I was born in Idaho in the United States. Pretty normal life, kind of isolated from a lot of the world. There was a pretty dominant religion where I grew up, and it's pretty white too, but a smaller town. And as early as I can remember, I've been just hunger for more, incredibly curious. I was doing self-inquiry before I even knew what that was when I was a teenager, like heavily, like enough to be outcast, and staring up at the clouds all the time, wondering what is this and where are we going and who am I? And kind of spontaneously early on, just out of high school, about 20 years old, I had just an absolutely transformative experience of oneness, just a complete immersion into what I experienced as a sea of light, and kind of the physical realm just melting away and kind of getting infused with this light. And the best word that I could ever describe it with at that moment was just love, just pure love. And while it happened spontaneously and I didn't see it coming, afterwards I could kind of track my steps and see, oh, I had to learn this, I had to learn that. I was asking the right questions. I was open to it. And it just unveiled itself to me. And then it was like, phew, back into life. I have to figure out, what am I going to do next? I know I have this thing. I know I want to do more. There's more to this, and I was overly excited and kind of forced it on people and probably alienated myself with friends and family. But I still had to get a job and figure out how to be human first. And, that took me on a lot of paths. I was actually drawn into energy work. I was making energy balls just on my own, out of interest, curiosity. When I was a very little kid, I was sitting there making light balls and playing with them, and shooting them off like Dragon Ball Z, like Kamehameha, and
Hadouken.
yeah, Hadouken. And at first it was just kind of a fantasy, but after that initial awakening and preceding awakenings, I was lucky to find a Reiki teachers in the little town that I lived in. And that opened up a whole world to me where, oh, wow, what I'm seeing with my eyes closed, other people can see too, and they can feel it. And there was this validation that there's this real thing going on. And I witnessed healings and was a part of it. And that was a big eye opener for me. So I found that community very accommodating for someone in my position. And then on the other side, I'm working 9 to 5 and working in food industry. And I was a cook at the time, a saute chef and broiler. And then I started managing the kitchen. Then I worked as a manager out front and server, bartender, the whole 9 yards, managed a restaurant too. But I loved leadership roles. Like I was drawn to it. Um, I don't know. I just had the incentive to take on, more responsibility, and I learned everything. And then I moved on from there to sales, and sales is tough, but I learned a lot. And I learned self-value, that I can put in. The amount of work I put in is equivalent to the amount of value that I can accrue. And I loved the coaching and mentoring aspect, especially just being able to help people find motivation and drive when everything is against them. I just loved it. It filled me up. And eventually, coming up within the last 2 years, I finally decided to take a leap of faith and did well enough in sales that I could dive into facing my own company. And well, I didn't even start that way. I just started writing. I didn't know what to do. I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I put my head together with my dad, who's been along with me on this ride. He's a bit older. He's retired and facing some pretty massive surgeries, back surgery specifically, and that crises in his life precipitated approaching spirituality in a very serious light. And it just so happened that I'm also approaching spirituality in a very professional light, trying to make this as real as it is to me for everyone else, so I can offer it to the world. And it dawned on me, I had another epiphany when that all got started, where we were drawing up diagrams and we started making videos, and I just kicked off my YouTube video, and I was looking at all these pictures and all my notes, and I realized, oh, I'm right, making the same point on every page. And it's like I'm trying to point at the same point that I found back when I was a kid. And it was like all of a sudden I realized, oh, if I could just polish that up and use that as kind of my basis for how I approach life with confidence and integrity, I can bring this to the world. And that led to creating Spiritual Escape Artist. And the logo even was a divine inspiration of a key and a question mark, and recognizing that my time is of value, as is everyone's. That right now is really the most important thing to us, because that's what matters. And quite literally, like, is materializing. That's what's right in front of our face. Materializing. Anything else is an immaterial or non-physical. And because of that, it means our time is actually our currency, and where we're placing that is influencing us and the world around us, how we spend or invest our time. And I realized that's what I can do is offer my time to another and give it the full undivided attention that it deserves for whoever I'm with, and go within and access that light, that river of light. And I now provide the service of slipstreaming, which is a synthesis of what I learned in Reiki through energy perception, what I learned through years of coaching people and helping people and getting outside the mind, past mental blocks, and self-empowerment, finding drive when you can't find it anywhere, finding that purpose, and just bringing that all together into a unified whole. And I call that slipstreaming. And so, yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it up to this point, now that I'm talking to you guys.
Well, that's great. Mm-hmm. I think the next most relevant question I got to ask would probably be like, so what does it mean to be a spiritual escape artist?
So the idea is that where we're all trying to get to, in the sense, the destination, if there could be one, is right here, right now. That ultimately any one of us wants to feel at peace, at home, in well-being with who they're with the life that they have, doing what they do, and hitting kind of all of those aspects of life means arriving in the moment with your full authentic self to maximize the quality of the time that you have here. So in terms of the escape, it's escaping everything else and coming into the now. That's where the liberation is. It's escaping I've got to be somebody. I've got to fit into this system. I've got to make this work. I've got to do that. I can't do this. I can't follow my heartstream because this life isn't fantasy, and because you believe what somebody told you because they were living a lie, basically. And it's the escape from that. It's the escape from the matrix. We could call it that. So that's in to like more kind of focus in on the name. Not only is it an escape from the limitations of being a human, but also it's an art. It's not just me, it's not just mine. Everybody has access to this, and so there's a level of creativity going on here, that it isn't this rigid path that you have to follow. There's an art to it. You can play with it, you can be creative with it. So that's kind of the artist aspect of the name.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, the thing that kind of sticks out to me is the creator is the creator aspect there, where like I feel like I think that it's so important that people tap into their creative capacities. I feel that a lot of the problems in our world are that people are so stifled that they have no time anymore to
Yes.
pursue their true passions. And I think that if there's anything along the spiritual path that can help you find yourself or figure out where you got to go, it's kind of tapping into some of that. Do you help maybe some of the people that speak with you, like bypass some of that, or help them figure out how to tap into that? Is that kind of what you're doing here?
Absolutely. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. A lot of the sessions end up just being way more playful than they've been allowing themselves to be when approaching, not even so much bypassing an issue that they have. Because a lot of what I find is the reason why they can't be in the present moment, they can't be present, they can't follow their heartstream, is because they feel they must go through their suffering. Somewhere within them is a belief that this is their burden, or this that they're not worthy of spiritual reprieve, if you will, until they figure that out. And the idea here is not to ignore it, because it's a real thing and there is a lesson to be learned. It's just you can't figure out that lesson when you've been thinking about the same thing for 10 years or whatever it is, or you buried a trauma that you're not willing to face because you're too afraid to approach it. And that could be the one thing that if you adjusted that belief in yourself, and that could be a belief saying, I'm not worthy, for instance, that if you adjusted that, you would open up so many doors of possibility as to where you could go. So it's about coming into the present moment, getting clear about what it is that you really do want, or what it can be like if you're past that, and then holding that space for that, and then reapproaching that block from a new perspective. So that lends to the kind of creative, playful approach to your own inner world, because we all need help at some point or another, and sometimes all it takes is somebody to look at our blind spot and say, hey, have you thought about it this way? Have you recognized that you've been telling yourself this whole time, that you have a choice as to whether or not you repeat that tomorrow or the next day? And that when you say that thing that you say about yourself, you create a confirmation bias, and you look for that out in the world to confirm what you just said about yourself. So, and then to add on to the point that you just made about that it feels incredible to access that creative outlet. And that could be the one outlet that a lot of people need to release that pent up energy into something productive, something beautiful, and even go through the shadow realm within, go through those twisted beliefs, and start pulling that out in a constructive and even beneficial way to others, because other people need to also know the pain that you're going through, so they know they're not alone. And sometimes that's what being creative means. So creativity in my eyes is completely spiritual. That is tapping into your mystical side. That's tapping into what's going on in here in the heart, and getting out of all the traps and the rigid structure of the mind. Yeah.
Sounds like there's some psychology in there. Like I've often wondered about in the past when people have spoken about methods for attaining peace or working through their sort of seemingly neurotic problems, and when I think about like past scriptures, I'm like, some of the spirituality is a little bit synonymous with psychology, like psychological principles that can be worked out to give you a healthier mind. So that being said, though, I'm super intrigued by the experience that you had in the Sea of White and the feeling of love that was all around you, because that's like stark, that's like a spiritual experience. That's like something many of us seem to not have a reference point for. Could you speak about like what led to that? Could you talk about like what was the conditions that were conducive to that experience, and do you still tap into that? What is it? What are some thoughts on that?
Okay. So what led to that, I know, was just ultimately kind of the nature of who I was and what I was interested in. I was of the curious sort, introspective, let's call it. I'd think about a thought. I'd think about thoughts, and then I'd go back, I'd like go up in there and keep thinking deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was just always digging and digging within myself. And initially, when I was young, I was kind of nihilistic. I really believed in nothing. And I held that, I held that as kind of my identity. Like, this ain't shit, fuck all y'all. You all obviously don't know what you're doing. And I had a lot of religious influence. I went to Christian private schools, and so the Bible was always around me, and I had to attend church and all these things. And while the scripture and everything itself was just fine, and I loved Jesus and all that, it just didn't make sense or fit into an acceptable answer to the kind of questions that I was having. They were more like, just give it up to faith and believe the words of this Bible and read it every day. And that just, at the time, it wasn't enough for me, so I rebelled. So I had a very anti-authority kind of nature as a punk. I took up drugs and smoking and drinking kind of earlier out of high school, and I just wanted to party, and I was like totally against getting in the institutionalized education and all that stuff, because it just bored me, man. I was just like, I couldn't fit in that, and I knew it. And it's not that it wasn't smart enough or anything like that. It's just it didn't satiate my soul's drive. But I didn't really know what that was yet until a couple of integral lessons came my way. Two by priority, I suppose. One was due to this crisis that occurred, where I had some friends that were getting in trouble with the law, and I was kind of a third party in it. I was at work, and my house was getting busted, and a bunch of my stuff was found with them. And then my roommate was getting in trouble, and suddenly all my friends were like my biggest enemies, and there was a huge fight going on. And I was like at this precipice where I was about to take the rap for some of my belongings that were in their possession when they got in trouble, but I wasn't there and wasn't technically in possession of it. And I was about ready to take the fall for this friend of mine, because I didn't want him to be in trouble for what those cops had found. And it just so happened that this was kind of an intersection of seeing my sister, who I hadn't seen in years. She's much older than me. And not to expound on this whole story, but she taught me a valuable lesson that day, that I'm responsible for where I'm at in my life, that really it was my choices that got me there. It was my choice to live in that house. It was my choice to keep my door unlocked. It was my choice to have those friends. And that was a big eye opener for me. And that led to the preceding awakening of, if I really want to find out the truth about reality and spirituality and supernatural and all of the stuff that I was curious about and love to talk about, which, by the way, was very difficult to find other people to talk about. That was another aspect of this. I was very alone in this. I had a few friends, but not many people could hang with the really deep conversation. Like it would kind of clear a room, you know? And so I recognized I've got to be authentic if I want to find the truth. And I did something that none of my other friends would have dared done at the time. And I went to my parents and just told them every lie I ever told them. Just told them about money I snuck out of their wallets. I told them about all the drugs I had tried and the partying and skipping school. And I mean, my mom was devastated. My dad was chuckling and laughing. You know, they're separated, by the way, but it was a big pivotal moment for me because I recognized, and I was lucky. I should say I was fortunate that they're loving parents and very open-minded. They didn't try and force any indoctrination on me or make me follow a religion. They were like, go find your own way. And they were so respectful and cool with me growing up, and they let me get away with everything, that I felt like I have to just tell them everything because they're people too. They've lived a life. They've been through shit too. And if I'm going to be able to communicate with them and be friends with them when I'm older, I might as well just get it done with right now. And that really allowed us to become great friends as I got older and I became an adult. And we could talk about things that, you know, maybe my mom couldn't even talk about with her spouse, you know, and my dad never had the opportunity to talk about with anyone else in his life. So it really strengthened our bond. But that, I think, put me into a position, a heart-opened position, where my continuous self-inquiry and having a couple of really cool people with me along the way who tested my authenticity, and were willing to go down those deep rabbit holes with me, also kind of held that space for me. And then it just kind of emerged. And I mean, it was just so overwhelming and engrossing. And I know that, you know, anybody can wake up. I've seen it happen before, you know, I've experienced that. But this experience was quite magical. You know, it was freaking magic, man. It was incredible. Everything that I had ever remembered made sense up until that point. All the crap I had to go through, I could see the sequence of steps to get to the place that I was, and I could see how everything interlocked into this grand harmonious design. And the pinnacle of everything coming together at this like apex of time and space was this moment right before me, this thing that I'm experiencing. And that really never went away. And that's that feeling, that sense of the world like this never went away. I didn't know how to explain it. I had to learn how to adapt to that and convey that, and listen and meditate. And I had to take those more rigid spiritual disciplines to heart to just help me in bringing it to people, making it make sense. And then along the way, another huge aspect to all this is synchronicity. Just, I mean, again, we talk about magical, or like this almost fantasy-like quality of the world around me just providing what I need, you know, the teacher for the lesson, or a special message that just happens to answer the question that was swirling around in my head, and maybe I hear it in a song.
Maybe you do this too, but speaking of synchronicity, I've been trying to not be astounded by stuff like that, in hopes that more of it will happen. Like just the other day, there was a weird one with the Watchmen, and we were talking about Dr. Manhattan, and the guy we were interviewing was explaining that this Thoth entity looks like, described him like that. It was just a weird synchronicity, and I've been trying to like not be too, when it happens, mystified.
That reminds me of Terrence McKenna. If you're familiar, he always says, "Don't give into astonishment.
Don't give way to astonishment." Yeah.
Yes.
I love
what
that.
you're experiencing is normal. This is normal.
Yes. And now that, because I sort of interrupted you, I'll just say a couple other things.
No, you're good.
I love that decision where you came to the point where you went before your parents and you told them everything. I wish more of that would that's a bravery thing. That's a tough one. And I think the people don't understand how much crap you'll clear up just by doing that. I like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, tell on yourself. Go tell on yourself for everything. I know it's a tough pill to swallow, and maybe don't do that, everyone. But the act of doing that, because then you've got a relationship now with your parents where your parents can confide in you, which is beautiful. I remember early on, my dad, I think, was like, your guys' generation, we didn't talk about feelings with our parents. And
Yes.
I love that we're in a generation where there's that dialogue between parents. I love that you said you didn't shy. You mentioned people that tested your authenticity. Another very brave thing to be is to allow that testing and be like, let the trial of that shape me a little bit. I think that shows like a love for other people, is to allow yourself to be tested by them, because they're going to have some skeptical questions in this stuff. So I love all that stuff.
I was reminded of the scripture that said, confess your sins one to another, and the benefits of that kind of like...
I mean, it's
like,
cathartic. Like, it does so much good doing that. I question sometimes if there's ever an end to it. Like, it's like, I'm kind of tired of re-shaming myself over and over again. And I wonder if there's a day where you move past that. But until that day is obvious and clear, I think a good prescription is honesty and like that, confessing your sins one to another. I actually think there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A bridge here, you've talked already a bit about kind of like the power of now, and this is commonly talked about in the spiritual community, but clearly there is a block towards that. So I'm always curious with all teachers, I usually always ask them, what do you see as kind of like the biggest block for people being able to get themselves into that now moment? What is the thing preventing people from constantly being caught up in their past and in their future? Because I'm someone who struggles with it. So
I would say two things, and then these also branch from more of that. What you just mentioned about the just mentioned about the patriarchal kind of culture that we come from. The bearing the down of feelings, and in terms of duality, I believe that this comes down to a relationship between the mind and the heart. That the mind is associated with protecting the heart, and because the heart deep down is very precious to all of us, and we're careful who we give that to, our love, our respect, our honor, and so we have good reason to be protective. So it gives us a sense of control over controlling who we are, our sense of identity. And then those beliefs that are tied to that are actually protected by a very necessary component called fear. Fear is kind of, it serves us because it protects us. But when it's nurtured over time, after, say, a big trauma, right? As a child, you experience trauma, as we all do. We came into this, hellish world, and we face trauma. And as a child, coming from that precious place of just being a kid and just wanting to play and have fun and love, and we face the hostility and the confusion of the world, and we don't have the mental capacity to figure that out so easily. So we have to protect ourselves, and we have to do it quick. And we put up a wall there. We block it. We make it invisible. We hide an aspect of ourselves because of the pain that it gave us. And that function or feature of that statement, or now self-identity or belief about oneself, expertly hides itself from us and keeps us from going near it by creating anxiety and fear. And it'll actually make us seek distraction, look at our phones, or look for the next thing, look for the next win, or look for some solace elsewhere outside of right here, because right here is where the heart lives. This is where it's resting, it's beating. This is where your breath is happening. This is where all the blood is circulating through your body. This is all that's, in that sense, really happening. And because of that pain and everything that we've felt, that unease. It's just become a habit, kind of an unconscious habit, to go back up in the head, to go hide in an imaginary place in your mind, and wish for things, and even continue the narrative that a lot of people like to share, like, that's life sucks, that's my luck, or whatever it is, that kind of cynical approach that so many people take, very intelligent people take, because of the unconsciousness of their actions. And so I think that should answer your question. I see that as it's just being unconscious and being habitualized to coping with fear and trauma and pain that makes it so difficult, and probably makes it so annoying to hear people say it, be here now and live in the present, because they don't really want to, because it hurts sometimes to feel that. And
the mind will pull out
yeah.
all the stops too, because as you're talking, I'm like, there's something very appealing about the idea of actually escaping the mind. Like, you're an escape artist, and escaping that escaping thing. Like, let me escape into fantasy. Wait a sec. I have a body. Let me get in touch with it. I'm sweating. I got endorphins pumping through my body. I'm alive. I'm breathing. And the mind might throw fear at you. It might throw anxiety at you. But one of its go-tos, at least in my case, is boredom. It'll be like, it's boring. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Is it really that great just to be breathing and alive?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, come on, mind. Like, I'm doing something here.
So, and I'll throw another thing on there. And I think that too can come from a sense of complacency in getting into step with the rat race in the system, and being a person in a society. We take what we can get sometimes. We settle at other times, when it is good. And we will actually kind of ignore the hearts when it's hungry, when it's unsatiated, and we'll kind of quiet it up. We'll be like, man, can't do that right now. I can't do that for whatever reason. I don't have the skills. I don't have the looks. I don't have whatever it is. I can't achieve that thing that I really want. So I tell myself I can't have it. And so there's this kind of devaluation that occurs in the mental structure about the real being within. And so now, you come into the now, and it's kind of lackluster. It doesn't fill you with that vibe, because the heart actually is kind of just unsatiated. And I think that means, so one thing I bring up with my practice and the way that I approach these things is it can be so much more playful than just sitting in a quiet room and trying to get quiet. That's one aspect, and that is one very useful skill to develop. There's no doubt of that. However, there's a lot of other things that you can do. You could listen to beautiful music. You don't have to be bored and be present. You can simply decide to do something else. And being present is just immersing your attention in what you're doing, rather than, going through thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, or just being unconscious and unconsciously distracting yourself all the time. And that's not really an escape from how you feel. It's just jumping out of one area of pain and into another trap, so to speak. So there's just so many ways that you already know, living your life on ways to find peace and harmony, and get into the flow of life, get into that little dance where time collapses and you feel at one with your environment and what you're doing and the people around you. We've all experienced it in our own little ways. Could be cooking or eating dinner, or even watching a movie with a buddy. Like that is spiritual. That's actual true spirituality, is enjoying yourself and having well-being, because you want to. And we see a lot, and I'm sure you guys see it too.
I have so much admiration for people that can really give themselves over. Like, I feel like there's a couple of people I'm thinking of that are sort of like tough people, dudes, that have mentioned sobbing in public or something. Like, at least one person I can think of was mentioning being in an audience and like heaving. They were sobbing so hard And I'm like, I love that. I wish, like, I can't even. I gotta. If I'm feel emotional and doing a movie, I suppress it a little bit. To this day.
Well,
But
quit it.
But I know. But I got appreciation for people that can bear it all, and when they're a kind of a put together person on top of it. That's great. And then I had there was another thing that you mentioned there that I wanted to. I can't remember what it is though. Go ahead. That's okay. Hey, maybe now's a great time to start jumping into the whole channeling versus slipstreaming. I know we had talked a bit prior to the show about this, but maybe for our audience out there, I'm sure like most people out there might be thinking, I have an idea what channeling is, but I don't know what slipstreaming is. Maybe you could explain for our audience what the difference is between the two.
Okay. So the reason why, again, I've moved away from the terminology of channeling is the association with just connecting to entities and speaking and as a different person and just the whole appearance of that and the whole presentation of that. And usually there's a narrative that comes with it, like Bashar, the Essassani hybrid race, and or Abraham Hicks from years past. There's always this connotation of being somehow external, non-physical entity coming through from some distant time or place. And while I've had a lot of wisdom from those worlds, and that was really important in growing up because they were explaining a lot of things that I was going through, and it made me feel like I wasn't alone in this. So that was big for me. However, I have scruples with people that really lean into that, especially in terms of like the extraterrestrials and all that stuff. Not that it isn't useful and people don't have resonance with that says something to their heart and that they get something out of that. But I also think that it can create a sense or a complexity of trying to escape this planet and this life. There's a reason you're here. There's a reason you're going through what you're going through, and you're here to learn. And well, maybe you can't necessarily see why that is, and you think that you have some celestial heritage and that your home is actually on some distant star. What does that do for the rest of us? I mean, I think it's kind of takes away accountability for being here on this planet and what you could do, not just to help yourself, but help others. And while it's good, it's just another step. I think too, you kind of get the same thing that you see in the more traditional, conventional spiritual world, where people rely on a guru and they look at a guru and they put them on a pedestal, or they put a channel on a pedestal, and they just always see that person as somehow being above them, which means there's this unconscious belief that they are unworthy, that they cannot achieve, God realization or however they see it in their mind, enlightenment or whatever. And I think that conveyance of that information and that wisdom is just it's been done, and it works to a degree, but I am much more grounded in it. I feel like it's more important that we access our true home here in our heart and learn what this wants and what this needs to be in harmony with the mind and with the environment and the world and the life that you live in, so that you can make the best out of this, because you don't really have anything outside of what's going on right now, except for what you imagine it to be, some conception of what it could be. And so you see how that can kind of brew this idea of a greener pasture that you can never quite get to, like a carrot on the end of a stick. So with me, while I still see spirit channeling as really just getting into flow, it's getting into rhythm with the universe and letting it flow. And just like channeling, when I do it, the information comes through spontaneously, no premeditation or thought required. I close my eyes because it's easier to see. I have spent my life opening up all my chakras and opening up all these inner senses, or this intuition, or call it the first sense, to actually see into this infinite landscape of the spiritual realm. And I hold true to being right here, right now, as the source, as an actual point in all of our universes, that when we're together, as we're speaking, this is how connection is made, is by bridging across this now, this point of now. We all have our own now, but when we're together, we share the same now. And so that's the directive of it.
This is where it's
slipstreaming. Slipstreaming actually is like, you hear it in racing. It's a term for when two cars get in line with each other. The car in the back of the car in front gets into a vortex that has no resistance, because the car in front is taking all the resistance away. So it allows them to accelerate and burst out in front. So that's kind of where that name generated from. It's about coming into a space of absolutely no resistance, total flow, and just letting arise what happens spontaneously, without worry or concern or premeditation. It has to be this way or it has to be that way. It just happens, you know? So yeah, that's how I present my spiritual practice, as a refined service that I can offer to anyone, or a group, or a podcast, or whatever.
That's amazing. It's interesting. The first part that you were talking about with gurus, I've said in the past, I've been like, be your own guru. Like, we don't need this thing anymore. But I'll also say this. I don't necessarily want all gurus to go away. Like, I kind of like the idea of a group of people that have decided one person's going to be the master, and they treat them differently. If people still want to do that, you know what I mean? That's where they're at. There was a reason for it at some point, and I'm open to the idea that there's still a reason for it now. But I also agree with what you're saying, that if you're beyond that, and I think there's a lot of people coming to that where that's old hat, they've been there, they've seen what that's about, and they're ready to kind of really get serious about this stuff on a personal level and see how much authority they actually do have.
Right.
I'm cool with that too. That being said, yeah. Do you see the spiritual slipstreaming as like a gift that was granted to you? Is it something that is for everyone, or do you believe that through your awakening, like, it was a gift that was given to you maybe by source, and that some people get it, other people get other gifts? How do you see all of that?
I think everybody has innate gifts that they might not have accessed because of wherever they're at on their personal journey. I mean, to me, the ultimate gift in that sense is just being here, right here with you guys, looking at you, talking to you, hearing your voices. Like, that's the gift. And it's all about how you use it and how you spend your time that makes it what it is for you. So, like, for instance, when I was a kid and I was making those energy balls, I could have just listened to everybody else and thought, oh, that's just your imagination. You can't be doing that forever. Like, that's you're just playing. That's not real. And for whatever reason, I was like, no, I'm going to keep going with that. And because of that, I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, and I'd focus on a ball of light, and then I would make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'd feel it, and I would feel the rays coming off of it. And then I would turn it into a ball of lava, and I'd take it down to my root chakra, and I'd feel the magma, seeping through my veins as it would reach into the rocks in the earth and find the core of the earth. And then I would sit there and drink it like a straw, and actually sit there and play in this infinite realm of imagination, instead of saying that that's not real. And now I recognize, oh, it's actually more real than this physical world outside of us. Like, that's actually what's transitory. There is a great infinite world, a sea of energy and cosmic vibration that exists beyond this. So I was like, I'll just bring it out. I wanted to bring it out. I used to dream about, making my hands light up and show it to the world. That it was a dream. And I knew that the only way I would make a dream come into manifest is if I kept dedicating time to it. And that is what I present as slipstreaming, and myself. It's just me. I am spiritual escape artist. I slipstream, but it's not. It's just how I've made it appear, you know.
And then
It's
Street
not
Fighter
really
came
any...
out and you could do it for a nickel. Or for I'm just kidding.
Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly.
I've been making these energy balls.
It heals you. It doesn't knock you out, you know.
It's a good one.
Or can, I guess.
Well, you've got everyone intrigued. Everyone who's still here watching this, they want to maybe get a sample of maybe some of the slipstreaming. So I don't know how we get into this. Maybe you can kind of lead us into this and we can try it out. And I'm sure we can come up with some good questions to ask you.
Awesome. Okay. So, like I said, I go into it with the same technique that I have been developing my whole life as a spiritual practice, kind of what I do when I meditate. I focus on light and I bring it all to the center of my heart and I bring it in like this, and I hold it together with my hands, and I sit with it and allow it to clear my mind. And as I do that, a physiological response occurs where my body will start shaking and moving and kind of flowing on its own. And you'll see my eyes kind of darting around inside my head. Sometimes they're like going, like they're trying to point to some apex, like really high above my head. And that's what it feels like. And once I prompt you and say, all right, let's do this, you can ask whatever questions you have. Typically in a normal session, if we were just sitting in silence, we might just sit in silence, and you'll enter into it too. The idea is that we share this stream, we share this current, and that it brings us into that current so that we can approach life from our own place of peace, our own sovereignty. And yeah, so you can ask any questions you want and just let it flow. And if you can't ask anything, I might just have a message, a message that'll just want to flow out, and I just kind of let it happen, and it'll just kind of naturally take its course. And then you'll see me kind of with closed eyes at first, and then I'll kind of gradually start opening my eyes and kind of coming more into the moment as I get more used to it, more just warmed up into it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm ready when you are.
Let me have a big drink, guys. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, on your end, just be you. If you want to, breathe, be calm, whatever. Come up with an idea of what you're curious about, what you wonder about, and we'll go from there. And it has both elements of the more practical side of spirituality, getting out of the mind, but it also has the more mystical side of what's going on, with spirits and all those things too. Really, there's no limit to where we could take it. All right, thanks guys. Let's do this. Thank you. This moment is perfect. Those that are here are perfect. All of this is as it should be. Thank you for being you. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for doing all the things that you had to do to get yourself here. I thank you. Let's begin. So what up?
All right. Maybe as an opener question might be, do you come with an overarching message maybe for our audience out there watching?
Overarching message. You have more to do with what's going on than you may realize. There are not rules already out there that are set for you. You're the one that's actually setting those rules and abiding them.
That being said, for the people watching, what is the most comforting piece of information that you could say to reach everybody where they're at, where they may be at?
This may sound cliche, but everything's going to be okay. Ultimately, everything is going to be okay. There will be a time outside of time when you're done playing here, where you can relax again, be with the ones that you love, as though nothing had ever happened. And you'll be able to look back at this time or the struggle that you've had, smile, laugh, and learn. And that may be here in this life, that may be beyond this life, but you will welcome that, close the gap between you and that, if you allow it first as a possibility for everything to be okay. Everything is okay once you let it be okay. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. You've talked a little bit there about kind of like what happens after. Could you be maybe a little bit more specific about what happens, to someone when they die? Is there reincarnation, or is it right back to things? How's this all work out?
To be more specific is difficult because we would have to come up with a hypothetical situation of a specific individual and the path that they're leading through their spiritual development, through not only this physical life, but different soul levels and the interlocking lives that they're living simultaneously in past lives, future lives, and lives in between. A lot of that will ultimately be up to the individual once they are at that threshold. But ultimately, at the end of that road, so to speak, beyond the beyond, there is a expansion of one's self-awareness, of consciousness, to a more liberated perspective where it appears quite differently to consciousness than could be so easily translated in human terms, because no longer are we working within the confines of space and time. It becomes a lot more free range outside of the physical limitation, but that doesn't mean that you can't extend yourself beyond that physical limitation in this life either. No, please continue.
No, that's good. You tapped into what I was kind of looking for there. In terms of people preparing themselves for what comes after, are there any, maybe personal development tips on what you think people should be working on right now to be centering themselves, making themselves, becoming more conscious? What would you say about that?
So, in the sense of preparing for what lies beyond, I would say don't worry about that so much, because that will take you out of center. Because in truth, center is right here at the center of your being, not just your heart chakra, not just your physical heart beating in your chest, the lungs that keep a rhythm, an equilibrium to existence, to your mind, and all of the fluid rhythms that are occurring within all these systems that are intermeshed. But this heart of yours is intelligent. It is your true self, your true soul, beyond a self. This has desires. It has a knowledge beyond what the mind thinks or tries to image or reference or sort out or organize. This part of us can reach much further than this mind could ever. That this is merely an instrument or a tool. And when we get bogged down believing that what the mind is telling us is the truth, we become distrustful of a world around us and lose the relationship that we have with this true soul center, because we administer or distribute more of our God-given time to our mind and the narratives that we share in this drama of being human. So we give that all the power and all the import, all the significance, but that's made up. Somebody just made that up, told that to you because they were trying to figure out how to live their life and survive one day at a time. And they taught you what they knew, at the best they could, and then you took that on. But to truly find center is to inquire within. What do you want? How do you feel? What could we do to make you feel better, feel more at ease? And it will tell you. It will tell you quick. And sometimes that will make it beat really, 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 really fast, because it means crossing a threshold. And that threshold might be a little scary, but that's just how we protect ourselves from the unknown.
Is there a value hierarchy? Meaning, is there a reason why people should be moving from painful, sacrificial duties towards some sort of idealization of something like peace? And even higher than that, is there good and bad? Do good and bad exist? Which would simply answer a lot of this stuff. We seem to prefer things. Is there a good and is there a bad?
The reason why we experience this good and bad and hierarchical levels of structure in this experience is because we, as infinite consciousness, and of course I'm speaking to who's listening, decided to learn and grow and experience all that infinity has to offer, that we would forget all that bit and enter into a world of duality, of not just light and love, but void and death. And we experience both internally and externally. And our belief system is equipped with the words and language handed to us by our parents, our peers, our families, that are also experiencing this amnesia. And so the words aren't quite right. And often those words aren't quite handed to us with authenticity. So we don't have the correct words to quite describe what that is. But because of that, it precipitates as things like evil. And your heart knows. You ask that question to me, ask that to your heart, and your heart knows. And your heart knows the difference. And your heart has values. You could recognize your heart as the ultimate scale of value, that each one of us has the pinnacle of value, and we determine that value in how we identify ourselves. And our sense of self-worth is how we communicate and navigate through the world, and ultimately amounts to the wealth or the abundance or the richness of our life based on our sense of self, our sense of value. So there are narratives that give such great significance and import to the suffering of man, as though this is what we must go through. This is the fire that we must temper within. And while that may be another's path, it doesn't have to be your path if you decide that you are worthy to move forward.
Do you have any insights on the state of the world now? Maybe any immediate predictions or ideas about it, or anything, say, between now and, say, the next 10 years about where humanity is headed, what we're doing?
Cosmically speaking, there are great waves that pass through this little pocket of space and time that we all cohabitate. And it affects different people in different ways. And just because a big wave is hitting one aspect of the human experience, it might also be washing out in another. So it isn't all just one flat plane where the wave hits everybody in the same way. It can disperse itself out in ripples and hit people in different ways, may pull them under, may rise them high if they're ready, if they are living with authenticity from the heart, being true to the heart. they will find themselves more and more and more ready for when the cosmic uplift of energy occurs into what people have termed as the ascendance of the human race into the next level. But we're all actually in this together, and that's one difference that you may hear come from this voice as compared to others. While we are indeed living in our own inner universe, we are learning from that and sharing an external universe with other points of consciousness. And there is something to be learned in that, not just for our own individual paths, but as a collective, as a people, as a race, as a species. We are learning how to reconnect and reach back to where we once were when we lived tribally, when we lived in smaller circles. We were able to communicate, even telepathically, much easier, more fluidly. People were able to do the things that they love to do and contribute to society, doing what they were best at, living in that harmonic flow, because it was a time before the new paradigms of belief came in that separated us and made us sequester ourselves into cities and boxes away from everybody. And now the way that we see the world is being vicariously lived through our technology and our phones. That's how we communicate. And it isn't a real true connection anymore. It's far from it. There is a level of anonymity and disconnect right from the gate. And it makes it difficult to have that real authentic connection that we once had with our neighbor, with the town elder or mayor or chef or mortician. These things are all necessary along a collective path of spiritual growth. And as each one of us finds our own heart's compass, if you will, our intuitive sense, and feed that and nourish that and give that power, we will come into greater harmony with the world around us, and they will see that. And those that have been in pain and suffering and under the weight of their ancestors will be able to let go of that baggage and find their own inner truth as we lead by example. So in that cosmic, more mystical sense, there are opportunities arising that have never arisen before, and humanity as a whole is poised and ready like it's never been. But conscious evolution requires your conscious your conscious involvement. You have to make that choice with awareness and pay attention. Pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to the words you speak, not just to the world around you, but to yourself, because you're always listening and the universe is always listening, and it is having an impact. And you can see right now as actually being the microphone, right now as the camera. That's the console where you're entering commands unconsciously. And when you're out of the moment, you're actually entering commands as you just tell somebody, a passerby, how your day went. You are re-scripting it into an outcome.
That's so interesting what you said, and it makes me think of how indicative the phenomenon of ASMR is. You know, essentially people making sounds and speaking breathily into the mic in sort of an intimate way. And it makes me think that we've lost a sense of intimacy with each other, where we would actually, some of us would spend time listening to people make sounds like as if they were nearby or fidgeting, and that we've lost a value of in real life connection, hearing somebody just make sounds or maybe hum, or that closeness that we once had. Should people start to value in real life proximal should people make a point to be around other people in real life? Would this be helpful for people's health?
Precisely. And that is a brilliant example of how we have adapted to the technology that we have to reclaim something that was lost. The visceral, tactile experience. So, to answer that question, absolutely. Because in plain, efficient understanding, it's what you have control over, your environment, not just your outer environment, but your inner environment. That's actually what you have control over, not the rest of the world and the way that things are going, politics and media, and the social and economic structures that are so hard on so many people. We may not have control over that, but we do have control over our bed that we sleep in, if we have a bed, our yard, our home, if we have these things, and to also remember to be grateful for the things that we do have. Even if you're living with somebody else on their couch, you can still go do their dishes. There's things that you can do to ease the life of the people around you and make it a better place to live, even if it's the smallest thing, like picking up a little bit of garbage on your way to work. That is doing what you can, playing the part of saving the world, if you will, and reconnecting with not just the people around you, not just your inner soul, but the world at large and the universe even larger. All of these things are interconnected, and we kind of all know this. Chances are you're not listening to this if you didn't already believe that.
As a final question, at least for myself, I'm always curious about extraterrestrials and aliens and stuff like that. So I gotta ask, from, I don't know, your perspective, are they here? Are they in our solar system? Are we going to make first contact soon? Or
we got to.
Do they not exist? I don't know. I gotta.
Yes. In a broad sense, yes. But this also points back to recognizing that what we refer to as extraterrestrials are inhabiting a plane of existence that is outside physical dominion, outside of physical limitation. And we as humans collectively cannot see that as a whole group. We are not ready yet to see, in a sense, the world just tear open and portals open up and aliens walk through. There are too many that are still trying to get some rest and don't want to be waking up. And that's okay. It's to recognize that the spiritual journey is a personal one that you must take within. And as you take this journey, you will find connections to different points in what you perceive as time that actually doesn't exist outside of time in the same way and is more blended and synchronous and simultaneous from that angle. It might help to assimilate the information by recognizing ideas such as, I have a lineage to Pleiades, and there are points of consciousness that not only can quickly dart right above a town and give people some bit of wonderment as they dart around the sky, but they can also contact you in your dreams and in your meditations way more fluidly with way more relevant information that can help you access the next level of life that you are seeking. So the journey is within, not out there, not out into the skies. We won't see it out there like we have imagined it would look like in movies and books and science fiction, that they're actually much closer to home than what we have been telling each other in a playful, imaginative way to inspire and stoke wonderment within us, which acts as a catalyst to open up doors and break down walls.
Well, my final question was going to be about aliens. So,
all right, I guess we're good.
We are that. We are that thing that we think is somewhere out there. That's actually us. And we're looking at this great, intricate, beautiful, nuanced, mystical, and rather mundane reflection of something interior to us. It just happens to be assimilating into material form and looks how it looks in your life right now, in your present moment. Your desk, your devices, your liquids that you drink, the food that you eat, and the fridge that you have over there, and the sounds that are coming off of it is the physical manifestation of the entire universe. And right now is all that's happening. Right now is actually all there ever was and all you'll ever experience. So if you can get right here and be okay with that, then you will make your life easier and easier on everyone else, because we share this moment. We share this point. When we are together, we create a bridge, a connection that was once intrinsic, natural to us. We are here to rebuild that connection and rebuild our society and show that we could figure it out as humans, that we could get past our differences. And you could say that there are people that are placing wagers on whether or not this is going to happen from a distant vantage point. But I can assure you it will happen. It's happened before and we'll do it again. This is just what we do. We're consciousness. We live this life to experience all the ins and outs, all the ups and downs, all the constriction and expansion, the whole duality of the thing.
Amazing.
Is there anything else?
I think I think we're good for questions. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys for providing the audience and the questions and space and time.
Thanks for being willing to do it. Yeah. How does it feel?
I never know what's going to happen. I never know what's going to be said. So there's always that initial feeling of, kind of, like it's a leap, it's like a leap into an unknown space, and not concerning myself. Is it going to look right? Is it going to sound right? And feeling wise, it's very clear. It's very fluid. It's very natural. I feel like I am properly using my hands and my voice to form words and shapes into concepts so I can bridge the gap to your guys' consciousness. And I get the sensation of a blending of our minds and a connection being born there. And so in so many ways, like, how does that feel? That's kind of hard to put all into simple words. It feels good, man. It feels good, but it's
the
just
feedback
like
you must get sometimes. Like, I'm assuming you've done this quite a bit with other people, and you, with that whole process of blending and mind melding with the other people in the room, like, some part of me imagines that it would be amplified in real life with other people in the room, and that sometimes some mystical things may transpire where people are like, whoa, like,
absolutely,
you were answering questions before I even asked them. Sometimes
it's you. I've seen other people start channeling and I just sit back and quiet. And then they start pouring into it, and they start connecting all these dots, and they take the stage, and it's absolutely incredible. That's why I call it slipstreaming, because it's not just me being the channel of some entity. It's I am putting the channel between us as right now and bringing you into it. And, like, there is this channel, there is this current, there is this flow, and it's right there in front of you, right under your nose. And for some people, it's absolutely mystical. For others that I have a much, much closer relationship, a bond, like my beautiful wife, my soulmate, my co-pilot in life, we have, amazing mystical experiences. I don't want to brag and things like that, but there's more than just that. There's more than what you can imagine. And I've seen incredible things. I've seen rather simple things. Sometimes there's lots of crying, sometimes there's laughter, and it's just hilarious. It's just really, what is that person ready for? What do they want to do? What are they curious about? What is their heart desiring in that moment? And we let it happen. And it tickles me, man. It's
I love that. I love the fact that there's laughing.
Do this. How do I do
I love
this?
that it can be silly even, and who knows, maybe you can spread the ability to do this around, and then we'll have more of it, and
Yeah.
Sounds great.
And that comes in with the process too. I will have some people that just want to focus on opening their chakras or something like that, and they want to see into that energetic space. So that's becomes what it becomes, and then it's a channeled guidance on how can we see what's going on in that invisible realm, okay, that non-physical realm, that spiritual realm, or even sometimes psychedelic realm. That realm is there, and it's right. It's, you know, you close your eyes, it might look dark, but there is a ocean of activity going on out there, and you can interact with it. But if you don't spend the time to even practice it or even relish the possibility that that could exist, you'll go through your whole life and never know. You'll just never know, and that's okay. But, you know, there are steps to be taken. This has been plotted out. A lot of what I'm telling here is no secret, as you guys know. You know, you have chakras, you have hand chakras. These are eyes too. They can see things. But if you don't turn these lights on, you may never recognize that you can see, what you can feel, what you can touch, what you can hear is all one blended inner experience that you use all the time in dreams. Like that's what it comes on. We just don't, we forgot as a race, as humans, that we can turn that on with our physical bodies.
I love that so many times to like big communes, some of the people that flood there and funnel in will be people walking away from like being a doctor, like walking away from lucrative careers, and they go to the guy that's been doing the type of stuff you've been doing your whole life. You're like, hey, circumstances pushed me into, you know, putting my hands into lava, into the earth, and creating light balls. That was the way life pushed me. And the two paths converge when you've got people walking away from their medical practice to go meet Osho, who's like, all right, you will be of use here. And the thing you're after is what I've been up to. And it's like there's some kind of reciprocity there. It's like people, I think, could use to know that all paths are important, no matter what you've been doing. But some of us been meditating in the forest. You know, some of us out there have been learning the answer for what you're ready for after you've explored conquering the world of finance. You know what I mean? It's like, well, now that you've seen that and you're ready for something else, that's what I've been developing a doctorate in. You know, and then you can provide some insight.
Well, and one thing that we were talking about Gary earlier, and he just said the simple saying, always a student. And that's what comes to mind as you guys are saying that, is you'd be amazed when you take on that I am here to learn attitude towards life. It opens up doors. It opens up opportunities and perspectives and vantage points over everything. And you recognize that everybody's here to teach you something. Mm-hmm. I mean, not everybody is living their own life, and they are specialized in something that you can't understand because you're not living that life. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know how to be Justin. I don't know how to be James. You guys have something special that you bring to the table, you know, and we're all here to teach each other. And to humble oneself and recognize that you can't know it all. You really can't. But at the same time, you can help a lot. And you have something that other people are seeking. Is you know, another part of the learning how to identify with your greater nature, your more soul, your more spiritual side.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, Jeff, I just want to say thanks so much for coming on the show. This was a blast.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Seriously. Yeah. Thanks for talking. This has been great.
Yeah. Maybe to close things out, you can let our audience know where they can find you, what you got going on, and all that good stuff.
So, I got my YouTube, Spiritual Escape Artist. If you type that in, I have spiritualescapeartist.com. There you'll find my links. I have a contact page with all my links on it. I've got an Instagram, Facebook. I have email. I have a little message board. You can contact me. I have a little business line you can call me on. Text me. Like I'm ready to talk to people. I'll take all comers. If this is something that interests you, I'll provide you that space and make it worth your while. Absolutely.
All right.
Amazing.
Well, great. Thanks for being on the show, Jeff.
Thank you guys. Seriously. Oh man, thank you. Thanks for what you do.